Good morning. Happy Monday, PT on Ice, Monday with Pop. It is good to be here. Gonna see if we got any visitors this morning. Otherwise, we're gonna roll right into it. We got a lot going on. It was a fun weekend for me. Hopefully, everybody felt the same way. Had a nice, relaxing weekend. I know there was a lot going on. I saw some posts about some lumbar management out on the West Coast. I think it looked like Jeff was out there, and saw a bit of banter going back and forth on some of the ice pages. Just people doing stuff. It's always busy. Something always going on. I think I wish I had a little less travel planned with life, but it looks like Jason's going to be in striking distance for me. Blacksburg, Virginia. It looks like an awesome course. The running athlete course. So. But no dice for me. Can't get down there. Can't do another weekend of travel. I think my family would just about kill me. So a lot going on. But anyway, so good morning. Good morning. It's good to see people rolling in. I thought this morning what I would do is recap a little bit of the weekend that I had and maybe review some of the concepts that I shared. So I'll go ahead and start the clock because if I don't, I'll ramble. So let me get that teed up here. All right, and we're off. Okay, so this morning, what I wanted to do was just kind of, dive into. So I had this great weekend. I was lucky enough to be invited to go down to Loretto, Pennsylvania. Which, if you don't know Loretto, Pennsylvania, I didn't either. It's a small little town, and St. Francis University is there, and quite the history there at St. Francis University. It was the first Franciscan university in the United States. I didn't know that. It's a small school. But they've got this great PT program there, and a friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Ivan Mulligan, invited me to come down and do a little bit of a mini keynote, a little commencement address for the PT class. They are graduating their DPTs, about 30 DPTs or so, plus or minus, and getting ready to hit the world. And so, it's now kind of the second year I've been invited to do a little address like that, and it's super cool for me. So last year I did sales, and this year out in Loretto at St. Francis. So it was cool for me because it always gives me a moment to kind of stop and think about, what are you going to say? Like what's the most important message that you can say? And for me, it's pretty clear, but how do you put it into words that resonate with both students and family members and faculty, and also do it in a short amount of time? So that's probably the hardest part for me. So to do it succinctly, and of course, people tell you that the most powerful speeches are the ones that get to the point and get in and get out and let us move on. So I will say that I got good feedback. My first bit of feedback was not first, but some of the feedback that I got was from one of the parents or family members who came up to me, and she said, "Hey, that was a really good speech." And I said, "Oh, thanks." And she said, "Because it wasn't boring." And I said, "Oh, great." She said, and it was short. And I was like, "Okay, good." So maybe we're on the right track. So here's kind of the recap. And I'm not going to give you the actual speech word for word, but I'm going to give you the recap because I think it's a recap that the more I thought about it, the more I think it's close. It's close to what we need to be thinking about. And of course, for those of you who follow this message, this idea of prevention, population health, and all the things that we're doing, there's not going to come a ton of surprise there, right? So I started with the idea of, hey, welcome to the field, and thanks for being part of our profession. But that now it's really time to talk about what it means to be a firefighter. And the idea of being a firefighter is not something I'm familiar with. I've never been a firefighter. I probably will never be a firefighter. But I think in truth, that's what we're really all training for. If you're a health professional and you're entering the field, what you're really training for is to be a firefighter, because in many ways the world is on fire. Any way you look, any way you kind of turn around, and no matter what direction you look at it, from a health perspective, our country and our world is literally like an out of control wildfire. And you have some groups and people who are putting gasoline on the flames and seem to be making it worse, and you have others like us who are going to be in the front lines trying to figure out how to stop this thing and keep it from progressing. And so if you can use that analogy maybe it works, right? And so I did a little homework, and I tried to find some information on what does it mean to be sort of a person who's firefighting, but like in a wildfire, not just like your local guy who's putting out the occasional fire or getting the kitten out of the tree, not that analogy, but like the hardcore folks who are dropped into the Northwest or into California when things start to burn? And how do we keep that from damaging everything around us? And so, for me, you do it in a couple of ways, right? So the first thing is you can bring fire to the fire. And although that sounds ironic, the more we learn about it, the more people do it. You get into what they call a backburn. So you got these folks who are going onto the front lines, getting into where the fire is burning, and they're actually creating a fire in controlled scenario to burn up the fuel so that this thing can't rage. So you can fight fire with fire. That's one way to do it. And as therapists entering the workforce, and maybe all of us who have been in the workforce, you're going to have some people who have that fire, who it's like it's inside of you, and you want to fight this thing with more fire. You want to go right at it and hit it hard. And I love that. And I think that that's a tool that not everyone has, but it's something that some of us have. And so there's value in it. You can fight fire with earth. You can kind of, dig a fire line. And so if you look at people who fight wildfires, they dig these lines and they sort of, dig back all the brush and create sort of a dip so that, again, literally building a perimeter around this thing. And to me, what that means for all of us is getting kind of down into the dirt, like rolling up our sleeves and being real, terra firma, like being a real person who deals with real people and the real fires that they fight. I mean, in reality, that's what separates most of us on the front lines from a health perspective to those who maybe just are a little out of touch. With the idea that, we get deep into terra firma, that we are going to be on the front lines, that we are going to be real and earthy in that way. You can fight fire with water, right? You can fight it by certainly putting it out with water. And in my mind, that's kind of like the soothing idea, the idea of care and really beginning to cool the flames. Take it down a notch, calm a person or a situation down, get a body, sort of back down to a controlled, level. To me, that's the compassion side. That's the soothing side. And although we have to respect the power of water, anybody who's been in a flood understands that. That's not necessarily what we're doing here. What we're really doing is we're bringing the care and we're actually connecting with people. And I think the one thing that you don't fight a fire with, the one thing that you just don't ever fight a fire with is wind. And there's a reason there, right? There's a reason why we never fight a fire with wind, because wind spreads fire. And in truth, although ironic for me to be talking about this in many ways, that is what I think is a pervasive problem in the professions, right? That we're all talk. We love to spread wind. We love to spray wind and spread out as much as we can, and the flames just shoot in all different directions because everyone wants to talk. Everyone wants to get out there and get their mouth going, but doesn't want to roll up their sleeves and get dirty, doesn't want to bring the canister of water, and doesn't necessarily want to get in there and fight with fire. We all want to fight with wind. And I think that there's something there for us. I think there's something we all have to consider. If you're a new grad, for sure, don't get sucked into that vortex. That would be my advice to you. If you're graduating, and we certainly see the pictures, don't get sucked in there into the idea of just spreading a message and just talking about it. Get behind that message. Do something with it. If you're a fire person, bring the fire. If you're an earth person, get down and get dirty. And if you're a water person, bring the compassion. Now, for us, we translate those into the same 5 things that I always talk about. And of course, that comes to no surprise to those of you who are listening today, but maybe to some in the audience that day that they did get it a little bit. Of course, we talk about move, fuel, recover, endure, connect. And move, fuel, recover are easy, and we can dive into that in depth, and you can spend as much time as you want. But the 2 that aren't as easy are endure and connect. And I think that one of the things that we always try to get people thinking about is dive into that word endure a little bit. What does it really mean? What it really means is that as tired and exhausted in a good way as you are getting ready to enter this new bit of journey, what you've achieved is a new starting line, not a finish line, right? Like, don't be fooled. Take it from the guy who almost to the day 20 years ago was in the spot that you're in if you're a new grad, right? Like literally 1998 in May, I was sitting in that seat. And if there's anything I've learned in that time, in 20 years, it's the idea that this was a starting line, that you achieve, that you work hard, that you grind it out, not to get to the finish line because you get to the next starting line. And that starting line for new graduates is really entering the fire, right? Like, now you're ready. Now you're tempered a little bit. The work that you've done to get here just puts you onto the next starting line. And so it's really a game of endure. It's a game of endurance. And obviously anything that we see and we look around and we hear about things like burnout, that to me is a failure to endure. That maybe that person wasn't prepped, they weren't ready, they weren't ready to jump in the way that they wanted to jump in, or maybe they came to the realization of exactly how hot those flames really are. But the truth is that you get energy from some of the things that you do. The endure piece comes from when you watch, somebody's child make some major developmental milestone because of the work that you've done with them if you're a peds therapist, or restoring someone's pain, or just exploring it and giving them the ability to give some lease back on their life. Family members bring you little victories and help you endure. But the idea is continue to get going forward, continue to put one foot forward, and continue to make progress. That's endure. And in my mind, the way we do that is we connect, right? We connect with other humans. Like, we have to come to the conclusion that we are not really built to do this thing alone. That isolation and being alone is not going to help us put the world's flames out. We do it by banding together and staying tightly locked and being able to march forward as a group, as a unit. And so connect, the idea of connect is really all about that personal compassion. It's about going back to ourselves and being willing to go all in with someone for someone else, about laying it down on the line every single day. And is that tiring? Yeah, it's incredibly tiring. It's draining. It's enough to absolutely wear you out. And there are days where it wears you out. And there are definitely days that it wears me out. But what you know is that you're fighting something that's so important, that the world is so on fire. If you need evidence of that, if we need any evidence of exactly how on fire the world is today, and the flames that you're entering, exactly how hot they're burning, well, if you're working in the U.S., just look at the prescription medications that people are on. Every adult in America, statistically speaking, is going to be on a medication or two by the time they're 50. That is absolutely insane. If you really looked at it, you could assume that they're going to be at least on cholesterol medication and high blood pressure medication. In addition to that, we of course lead the world in painkillers, right? Opioids, we have enough for everybody and then some, and antidepressants, right? So what does that tell us about the flames? These are burning hot. These are deep flames, and the entire world is on it. And so no matter where you're entering, no matter what facet you're entering in or domain you're entering in, we have to understand that the layers have created a heat that really is almost impenetrable. But it's not impenetrable if you connect. If you can connect with the person in front of you, and connect with the groups that you serve, and connect with the professions the professionals that are fighting with you, whether they be from your same profession or a like profession, that part doesn't matter. What really matters is the idea that if we go together, we can begin to actually dig that perimeter. We can fight that fire. We can bring enough water with us. We have the strength as a group to bring enough compassion to actually put out some flames. When your fire burns low a little bit, someone else can pick up the flame and they can go forward and fight the fire with fire if that's the method that they choose. So I think that the message is this. We have an incredible gauntlet in front of us. Every one of us, every day. You wake up every single day and you just know that you're going back to fight some flames that could literally take over the world, right? That the despair around us, that the feelings of being down, that the disease around us could easily win. Right? In this battle, whatever you want to call it, however that makes sense to you. To me, I think of it as a battle. I think of it as a world on fire, and fire that we're trying to fight. Now, it can win. There's not enough of us. In all honesty, there's not enough of us. Just like there's never enough firefighters to put out a wildfire. So what do? They prevent. Ultimately, that's what they do. They spend most of their days actually getting ahead of it, thinking ahead of it, and saying, hey, how do we get ahead of this thing? How do we remove the fuel from the flames this year? How do we make sure the design is a little bit better this year? Are there going to be some fires? Yeah, there's going to be. Absolutely. But how do we do a little bit better so that they can't quite grab as much? Right? How do we put strategic stations of these things around? How do we stay ahead of it and build some strategy into this? And how do we kind of, coordinate people so that they can work together tightly when the moment hits? Because we know the moment will hit. In my opinion, that's the part that is like the next step. Yeah, you can go out there and you can join a bunch of other firefighters. And you can get in the mix and start fighting stuff. Like, that's awesome. It'll be exciting. And it will wear you out. Because no one can endure that forever. But if you get with the group who says, listen, in the time when it's time to fight the fire, we fight. every other moment we design and prevent, and we get ahead of it and make sure that we minimize the ability for this thing to take hold. To me, that is the final piece. That is the connection piece. And when we get that right, all of a sudden we exponentially increase our odds of success. And so what I hope will happen, and I hope every new grad and really every therapist out there, I mean, this is a great time of year for all of us. Whether you're brand new, whether you've been in the field for a year or two, or whether you're like an old dog like me at 20 years, right? And some even older, right? If you're somewhere in that range, and every day you're sort of like walking that line, and you're trying to walk that line a little bit and fight that fire, just understand that what it comes down to more than anything is if we're going to increase the odds of our success, we've got to connect as a unit. We have to come together and find out how we can all do a piece and play a role. All right. That was pretty close to the 15-minute mark. 39 seconds left. This thing's going to beep. So hopefully you get my message. Welcome to the ranks of being a firefighter in the healthcare sense of the word. The world is definitely on fire. The gauntlet is definitely laid down. And every one of us who wakes up and hits the trail every day to go out there and find those flames and fight them deserves a real tip of the cap. Welcome to the new grads. Happy May. If you're graduating, if you're an old dog, welcome back. Let's get to work. It's only Monday with 5 seconds left. Make it count.